when I'm walking down the street.
I do want to say to Doni and many of you in this room that over a very long career in this city, all of you have helped me and my colleagues tell the truth and to try to tell.
I may not look like you and you me, but
Take my hat off.
I'm from South Carolina, so I just...
What does this event mean to you, Miss Peggy Moss?
Oh, my heart,
Happy 20th anniversary.
my heart is about loving up on my sisters. Do you know what it feels like to have your sisters in the room? Done.
And dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. I am beautiful, I am blessed, but not just what you see in the flesh. I'm free from people, free from myself. There's
The doctor lived next door to the janitor to the reverend, and the lawyer. We were together. Now we get so high and mighty that you create stress for your society because you don't like poor black folks either. That's a health problem. Get yourself together so I can stop being taking care of geriatric people and get back to pediatrics. I thank you, Doni, for all you've done. Let's keep doing it all the more.
letting His glory shine through. Dare to be you, dare to be me, dare to be different and unique. I'm gonna be the best me I can be by letting His glory shine through. And I dare you, I dare you, I dare you to be you.
First name's Doni, last name's Glover. In it to win it for the long haul, baby. Let's bless this show. Let's bless this week. We want to thank you, Lord, all wise and almighty God, for another week, a new week that we can go forth and live our purpose, live our mission. Bless this show. We pray that we are able to touch somebody, inform somebody, maybe help empower someone to move to the next level. We promise, Lord, to continue to give you all the praise and all the glory in your mighty, matchless, and majestic name. Amen. Ladies and gentlemen, this morning we're going to speak with former Baltimore City Councilman Carl Stokes. He was born on April 30th, 1950, attended Loyola High School in Towson. He attended Loyola College, co-founder and chief operating officer of Bluford Drew Jemison Math Science Technology Academy in East Baltimore, 2007. Let me tell you, he was doing STEM long before a lot of people. Former Vice President of Business Development, Mid-Atlantic Healthcare, Chair, Maryland Education Coalition, Charter Member and Interim Chair, New Board of Trustees at my alma mater, Paul Laurence Dunbar Community High School, President, Dallas Street Community Development Corporation, Board of Directors, UB Blake, Board of Directors, Village Learning Place. I remember that. Wasn't that over around 25th Street, Mr. Stokes? Co-founder Association of Sickle Cell Services, Education, Research, and Treatment, Baltimore Basketball Association, former president, Mondawmin Merchants Association. As a matter of fact, I got my first leather from Mr. Carl Stokes. I remember I thought I had a leather. I didn't know. I had a pleather. One of the kids lit a match, and I saw that thing started to curl up, and it was like, that ain't no leather. But I got a summer corps job. It was black, too. It was a black hipster. You could not tell me I was not good to go. Good morning.
Good morning, Brother Doni. How are you?
Blessed by the best. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm very good. Glad to be with you this morning, man.
Yeah, I know you think you know where I'm going with this interview, but I'm going to shake you for a second.
Oh, here we go.
How did you get into politics?
So a very long time ago, I still live in East Baltimore. So at that time, I wasn't really into politics. So this goes back into the 70s. As you mentioned, I had a clothing store, Every Man's Son, in Mondawmin Mall. Was doing it well, was successful with it, enjoyed it. But I was always involved in the community. I'm going to make this story short. I was involved with some others. We were running a sickle cell clinic at Garwin Medical Center. I was active in the basketball programs in East and West Baltimore at Madison Square, now the Dome, as well as Cloverdale. And so I was involved in the community things as well as the business. But in one particular year, I think it was 1983, there were like 21 people who were running for city council in my district, 21 people. And Doni, I didn't know 20 of them. I didn't know 20 people out of the 21. The only person I knew who was running was, at that time, City Councilman Nathaniel McFadden, who later became a state senator. And so there were all these people running I'd never heard of. Jackie McLean. I won't go through all the people because, as I said, I don't even know who they were.
Jackie McLean was pretty. Well, she became pretty notable.
She did, but at that time, she wasn't even living in East Baltimore at that particular year. So there were a lot of people who thought that it was going to be an easy place to win a seat.
Did that rub you the wrong way?
Yes, yes.
Like carpetbaggers?
Absolutely, absolutely. Who are these people, I said. And I knew Dubern.
That's how I feel in Santan. You see all of these people claiming Santan. You're like, I've never seen you on these streets.
Right, right. And understand, Dew Burns was running for president of the city council. Now, Dew, I knew very well because Dew and I attended St. Francis Xavier Roman Catholic Church over on Caroline Street. And when I went to elementary school at St. Francis Xavier, Dew Burns was the basketball coach for our CYO Catholic Youth Organization team. So I've known Dew most of my life, but I never was interested in politics. Anyway, I said I was going to make this short. That particular year, when 21 people were running for city council in quote, my district, and I didn't know 20 of them, I said, wait a minute, who are these people? And by the way, what are their interests in representing East Baltimore? I guess I had an ego and said, I can do a better job than any of those people. And so I threw my hat in the ring to run for city council. I went over to see Dew Burns and I said, Dew, I want to run for city council. He said, great. He said, but you're going to have to wait 4 years. I said, wait. I said, why? He said, because you got to come through the system. You got to be a member of the Eastside Democratic Organization. You got to learn about constituent service. You got to learn how to do the work in the field, knock on doors, help other people become council people, state delegates, senators. And you have to learn from the bottom up how to do this politically on the street, work with people. I said, I don't want to do that. I'm already, quote, successful. I've lived on the street for all of my life. I grew up in Latrobe Projects over the east side. And I said, and he said, no. He says, I got 3 people in front of you already, Carl. And if you come join the organization, 4 years from now, we'll back you to be city council person. And I said, Dew, I'm smarter than all the people in your organization. I was laughing at myself then. I said, I'm smarter than everybody in your organization, Dew. You ought to put me in right now. Dew said, listen, you are smarter than most of the people in my administration. He said, but you got to learn from the bottom, Carl. Now listen to this. Dew job before he went into politics was the shower master at your alma mater at Dunbar. Dew was the shower master. That was his full-time job. And he went from that to become mayor of our city. So if anybody's absolutely first black mayor, very good mayor. And so if anybody knew about starting from the bottom and coming to the top, it was Dew Burns. And so I went to see Dew for, I thought, a 15-minute conversation that he would bless me and I would go on. I wound up being with Dew for 3.5 hours, talking about what it took, not to be a politician, but what it took to be a public servant. And Deuce kept me there and talked to me about how to go out and meet with people, how to work for people, how to humble myself. It was so funny. Deuce said, "You got 3 votes in my house, Carl." Me, Miss Edith was his wife, and I think he was keeping one of his grandchildren. He said, "So you got 3 votes in my house, but I cannot endorse you. I cannot support you, and I will have my people say bad things about you if you try to run against us. So I said, okay. And I went over to Nathan Irby's office. And Nathan had was the city councilman, but the year before he had run against Bob Douglas, a sitting state senator. I'll take you back more history than you probably want to know, but we're going back. And he ran against Bob Douglas, beat Bob Douglas. He and Dew had a falling out. And so I went over to see Nate Irby. And Nate, there were people at Nate's group who knew me very well. Nina Harper and I went to school together, grew up. I met Edwin Johnson. I had never met Edwin Johnson until I went over there. Bill Henry Sr. Was the political guru of East Baltimore and was with Nathan Irby. I knew Bill Henry Sr. because I used to be at a tutorial project. I was a student at a tutorial project that Bill Henry Sr. and Wally Orlinsky, the former president of the city council, they ran this tutorial over around the Hopkins area in East Baltimore. So they knew me from, boyhood. Long story short, and I said it was going to be short, but it's been very long already, hasn't it? Nathan Irby and Edwin Johnson and Bill Henry took me in to their organization, and I ran for city council. I lost the first year, I think by about 86 votes. Long story short, I decided to sell the store, get out of the business, and prepare for the next 4 years. And I ran in 87, and I won in 87 with Jackie McLean, who had won that previous 4 years, and Anthony Ambridge. So we formed a ticket. I actually didn't form a ticket with Jackie. Edwin Johnson and I and Anthony were on the ticket. But unfortunately, Edwin lost that year. Jackie won, Anthony Ambridge won, and I won. And that's how I got into politics.
So we should note that Edwin Johnson became your loyal brother from another mother.
Absolutely. He and I became closer, not closer, but we became as brothers over the years. And, I miss him so greatly. We lost him about 2 years ago. And, we opened schools together. Neither one of us were educators, but we had 2 of the most successful schools in the city of Baltimore. And that's another story that you're familiar with. But Edwin and I were so very close.
I want to go back to the conversation with Dew.
Mm-hmm.
In retrospect, you still had to wait 4 years.
I did. I did. And
but you did it your way, Frank Sinatra.
I don't know, even in retrospect, if I would have done it differently, but Dew was right.
So what I'm getting to is today, young people who want to be in public service in Baltimore,
yes.
Baltimore City,
right,
who have no idea about those days.
Right.
What's the lesson to them? What's the wisdom many moons later from 1983 when you first ran, 87?
Right.
What can we share with them for those who are watching?
Well, Dew and his era were correct. Young people should learn what public service means. It's not just an office. It's not just a salary. It is public service.
The selfies on Instagram.
Right. No, it's public service. And so Dew, who started as a shower master at Dunbar High School and rose to become mayor of the city, what we knew about Dew was that you could always go to Dew. Dew lived on Mirror Street in East Baltimore off of Preston Street. And Dew never changed his phone number. And that day, before cell phones, you had a house phone. You were listed in the white pages of the phone book. And you could get an unpublished, non-published number if you wanted to. You pay an extra, whatever, $10 a month or whatever it was. And nobody would know your number. It would be private. But Dew never took his number out of the phone book. He never had a private number. You could just look at the white pages and you would see Dew Burns and Mirror Street. And you can call Dew on the phone. And Dew took your call. He answered the phone. Either he or Miss Edith answered the phone. And you say, can I speak to Dew Burns? And Miss Edith would say, hold on. And Dew would come to the phone. And you say, Dew, this is Mrs. Brown or Joe or whomever. And Dew said, okay, what do you want? What's going on? And you could tell Dew. So what I'm saying that is that Dew, he knew public service. He knew public service.
I hear you saying accessibility. You have to be accessible. And it
Right.
makes me think of Marion Barry. He didn't know
Right.
me from a can of paint, but he knew I was a young journalist from Baltimore. And I think his birthday, he's a Taurus. You're a Taurus, right?
Right, I am. April 30th.
This man answered his phone.
I heard that.
Night or
Right.
day, he answered his phone. I met a young man, he had just become a delegate. And he started hitting me on Facebook. It was a Sunday.
Okay.
Now, anything over 2 or 3 questions, I'm going to pick up the phone because I don't like leaving no paper trail
Right.
on Facebook. You know, I don't know who these people are. They got all kinds of spies. So I call him. He sends me a text. I have to call you Wednesday. This is Sunday. And I later had a conversation with him. That's not public service, son.
Right. Right.
Answer
Wow.
your phone. You're a delegate.
Right.
You have all of this much power. But we get a little prefix in front of our name, and now we're the honorable so and so.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Queen of England, and what's all of this? What has happened to Black public service?
Right. Public service. People who live next door to you and should act like they live next door to you, and they should know you for the most part before they call you. I know I don't want to sounded like an old guy, but you know, when you grew up in a neighborhood, you knew everybody in the neighborhood, and you could identify other people. You know, somebody could say, you know, I forget your dad's first name. Was it Doni Sr.? Yeah. Oh, okay. So somebody would identify you by saying that you were Donnie's little boy. You were Donnie's son. That's how they identified you, right? So if 2 people hanging in a bar, you know, older than you, and somebody says, this Donnie Glover wants to be, you know, councilman. They say, who's Donnie Glover? Come on, man. You know that's Donnie's son. You know who he is. Oh, okay, he's Donnie's son. Now they still don't know you, but they know who you are.
I got to say this for the record. His name was Donald Edward Glover. They called him Doc Glover.
Doc. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. East Baltimore guy, right?
Well, no.
Oh, okay.
He was from Shields Place, but his first funeral home, my first memories, Patterson Park in Lanville by the brewery.
Right. Right. Well, that's East Baltimore.
Oh, no question. That was his first.
Right.
So his first business was in East Baltimore.
Right.
And matter of
Okay.
fact, I remember the riots of '68 when the National Guard were
Yes.
post and the tanks were coming up North Avenue.
Right.
And then I remember people taking a coat hanger with steel wool on the end, lighting it a fire, and throwing it through the air.
Wow. Right.
You remember
Right.
that?
Well, I was a young boy, obviously, at St. Francis Xavier, I don't remember because I wasn't out there. I mean, really, I was.
They tell me that.
But I do remember it. Obviously, Gay Street was in my neighborhood.
They
Yeah.
told me that certain people would paint a X, like a red X, on
Yes.
the door.
Absolutely.
And that meant that black people live there and don't burn down the store.
Right. Absolutely. Oh, that was very much absolutely. And I said young boy. I actually was a teenager, but I very clearly remember. I just said I grew up in the Latrobe Projects. Gay Street was our main shopping area. It became Old Town Mall later, but it was Gay Street when we were growing up because it was still a through street. Remember Martin Luther King actually drove up that street in a parade.
It shook everybody's hand.
Right, absolutely did. I remember Muhammad Ali on that street. You remember that? Because they went to Avalon Shoe Store over there, one of the oldest black-owned businesses in the city of Baltimore. And that gentleman just passed about 2 years ago, about 100 years old. Uncle to Reggie, I want to say Reginald Lewis, but from a great old family. But yeah, so I remember those neighborhoods and exactly where you're talking about the American Brewery. You and I remember when the brewery was a brewery. And so that's going back, obviously, to that era. So yeah, but people knew who you were in the community. So people didn't just pop out like they did in 1983 and say, I'm running to be a representative in this district, and nobody knew you. That was almost impossible. So that's what shook me up in '82.
I remember.
What's that?
I remember Operation Champ. Man, they come and set up our corner. They pull out, they had a tractor trailer and had a pull-out stage. They had the basketball. Right. This is around the riots. And Captain Smith. Is that who it was?
Yeah, Captain Smith. They ran. He always kept his title from the military, but yeah, he was in charge of Operation Champ. And you're right; they would bring a tractor trailer to your neighborhood, unfold that thing, and it would be basketball court and games, and so it was fantastic.
And
singing, right? Yeah, they give you a performance. So it was a fantastic thing. You got a great memory on that. And they used to bring the gym to you.
What was happening that they had to do that?
What was happening then or now? I'm sorry.
Then what was the point behind all of that?
Well, the point behind that was that neighborhoods at that time black neighborhoods particularly, didn't have all the resources that they should have had, needed to have, but that didn't stop people in recreation and parks and the mayor and city council president at that time didn't stop them from coming to your neighborhood with those resources.
What I'm getting to is they didn't want black people to keep them riots going because black people had all of America afraid. They had riots all over the country.
You're right about that. So they would bring the entertainment, so to speak, to you. Now, they've always been able to calm the masses, so to speak, with entertainment. Marie Antoinette.
That was the most violent national black resistance effort ever in this country, correct?
I'm thinking.
In Newark, in all of the major cities, there were riots.
I agree. I mean, there were times when blacks responded to white racial violence against its communities.
They had killed Dr. King.
Right. But Dr. King, that assassination really set Americans correct, because before that, our protests, particularly because of Dr. King, were nonviolent, right? They would release dogs on us. They would hose us down with fire hoses. They would lynch us, and we pretty much kept to nonviolence resistance. And when we were proactive, our proactiveness was by marching peacefully or sitting down peacefully and not getting up. But you're right. After they killed Dr. King, we did explode with burning, looting, as you said, in a more violent and aggressive manner.
So white America had to start making some overtures to Black America, and
yes,
affirmative action would come about, give them jobs, because they were afraid. And then 3 years later, or was it 3 years earlier? 3 years earlier, they killed Malcolm.
They did. You're right, and which some people, I don't say took lying down, but Malcolm was known as being more aggressive, who said by any means necessary.
Had that AK at the window.
Right. And so there was a feeling that, well, Malcolm died as he lived, which wasn't totally true, but maybe that's another show. But so people said, well, Malcolm was killed. We're mad about it. We're disappointed, but Malcolm maybe lived by the sword. And so he died by the sword. But Martin did not live by the sword. Martin actually lived differently. He lived with...
And they still killed him.
And they still killed him. So that set us off, obviously. How could you, why would you, we're not going to stand for this. We're doing everything you've asked us to do. We've submitted peacefully. We simply sat at the table, sat at the drugstores, sat at the lunch counters, did not burn it down, and still you killed our leaders. You killed the people who said peace, peace, and you still killed us. So you're right, Dottie, absolutely, of course. That set off a firestorm, literally, in America with that. There had been riots, as you know, in Watts a couple of years before, but this was the first time there was a full-scale national protest in such a manner, was at the killing of Martin Luther King.
Tell me about Adam Clayton Powell.
Adam Clayton Powell, of course, the great congressman from New York City. Matter of fact, I was just in Harlem last weekend, and there was a street named after Adam Clayton Powell. There's the office building with Bill Clinton's office building there at 125th and Adam Clayton Powell Boulevard, a block or two from the Apollo Theater. Adam Clayton Powell used his position, not just in Congress, but his popularity in Harlem itself to gather so much for the city. Now, he was a guy who understood, and he's a pastor also in New York, Abyssinian Baptist Church, one of the largest at that time congregations in America. For Black pastor, but Adam Clayton Powell, that great congressman, used his power, but he was just like Dew in the sense that you knew Adam Clayton Powell. He walked the streets. You called his name. He turned around and answered, and he probably said, "Hey, Donnie, what you want?" Right? "Hey, Carl, how's your mother?" Because he knew public service, both as a pastor and as an elected official. And he was unapologetically, to use your phrase, Black, just like Marion Barry, who came after him. He was not afraid to say, "I'm Black, my people are Black, and I will do for them and be an advocate for them." As everybody, he had some faults, but in terms of public service, he had almost no faults in terms of giving back to his community and representing his community. And truthfully, by representing Harlem, he was representing blacks across America. He was a representative from Harlem, but he represented African Americans in America by his aggressiveness. And of course, some folk didn't like his aggressiveness. White folk did not like his being uppity, but he demanded respect, and he demanded the same rights as all other Americans. And he was a great leader and a great on the street representative.
How do we get this new cadre of leaders to understand that politics without economics is nothing?
Right. And as you know, Donnie, Martin Luther King, it is my theory and many others' theory, might be too early in the morning for me now, but it was my theory, I'm teasing, that Martin Luther King was killed when he said, okay, we've sat at the lunch counters peacefully long enough. Now we need to own the lunch counters. Now we need economic parity in this country. And Martin was one of the early people who said the problem is beyond just sitting at the lunch counter, but it is the fact that Black Americans don't have economic parity, that they don't have the jobs, that they don't have the opportunities for entrepreneurship, that they cannot feed their families, that they cannot own their own homes in equal measure as the non-African American. And so that became his new push. And still today, if people understood, when we were talking about the squeegee kids, Donnie, I was so upset with people saying what I thought was stupid things like, well, at least they're squeegeeing. They could be selling drugs. No, they couldn't be selling drugs. Are you stupid? I mean, as if the only other thing that a poor Black kid could do was squeegee or selling drugs. That was their only two economic paths in this city. And people still talk like that, unfortunately. The squeegee kids shouldn't have been on the corner, not because of all the other things that you want to hear about, but because they deserve better lives than to think that squeegeeing was a legitimate place for them to be. They deserve better lives than to have to be out there. Now I've gone off into another place, but it's
talking about the economics. Politics without economics is nothing.
Right. That's right. So I want to stay there, but the squeegee kids is an example of, you know, the Baltimore's number one problem, people can tell you, is crime, education. Baltimore's number one problem is poverty. 1/3 of every Black child in Baltimore lives in poverty. Grasp that number. 1/3 of every Black child in Baltimore, 1/3 of all Black children live in poverty, which means their family lives in poverty.
The whole culture, and you can't call it a subculture, because if it's 1 in 3, that is culture.
That is culture. That is a huge part. So whole parts of the city live in poverty, right? It's not like 1 in 3 in a neighborhood. The whole damn neighborhood is broke. The whole damn neighborhood is broke. And people are doing things to survive, to live. I'm not saying, whatever bad stuff that happens in the neighborhood is okay. I'm saying that people are doing what they have to do to survive. It's what they have to do. It's not a choice. It's not a choice to eat. You have to eat. Nature will not allow you to starve yourself and to just die. You are forced by nature to go out and get food. to take care of yourself, to take care of your family. And so this poverty overwhelms us. It's the reason some kids don't go to school, or it's the reason some kids go to school to get a meal. When Friday comes and there's a Saturday and Sunday or the whole summer and kids don't eat, that impacts their ability to think. It impacts their ability to enjoy, to recreate. So poverty is Baltimore's number one problem issue. It is, and again, you're right that too many Black politicians do not understand this. When we were fighting about the giveaways of Baltimore City tax dollars to wealthy white businessmen who don't live in Baltimore, with no dollars going to Sandtown or no dollars going to parts of East Baltimore that the Johns Hopkins has turned upside down and destroyed and taken away homes and property. No dollars were going there, and we were putting $1 billion or $750 million into places in the Harbor East, Harbor Point, the Port Covington, which name has been changed to Baltimore Peninsula. We are giving them billions of dollars of Sandtown dollars, because people in Sandtown pay taxes also. People in East Baltimore pay taxes. And when these other projects are given their money to support them and to subsidize their rents, it just damages severely the growth and progress of the African American community in Baltimore.
I got to jump in here. You mentioned
Go ahead.
Adam Clayton Powell, you mentioned Dew Burns. They were comfortable enough around the 1 in 3 Black people living in poverty.
Comfortable in the sense that they lived among them. They didn't move.
They didn't look too far down their nose.
They lived in the same community.
So
Dew did not live in Randallstown and represent East Baltimore. He lived. Go ahead.
At the very beginning of this show, in the intro, Dr. Michael Zollicoffer says that we have a problem with poor Black people. He calls it a health problem. Today, we have a Black governor. We have a Black attorney general. We have a Black treasurer. We have a Black speaker of the House. We have a Black mayor, a Black comptroller, a Black city council president. Back in those days, there were limited positions for Black people. I think Judge Joe Howard was the first, Judge Milton B. Allen, and then slowly but surely, Victorina Adams and others would come about. But now we dominate these positions, but we are challenged still. And I think our biggest challenge is class, because the Blacks who used to live in West Baltimore, who now live in Randallstown and Owens Mills, and the Blacks who used to live in East Baltimore, who now live in Towson and Essex or Harford County, something happened. Something happened since the 68 riots. And maybe they moved out there because they wanted better schools. All I know is we've got more positions than ever before, but we don't like poor Black people. We don't want to live next to poor Black people. We don't want to represent them. You talk about Adam Clayton Powell walking the streets. I've heard similar stories about Dew Burns, about Clarence Mitchell III. They will walk down the street, might even take a sip of wine with you, some Thunderbird and pineapple juice. It wasn't a problem, because these are our people. But we now are of the mindset of us and them. And for those Blacks in office who think they are the talented 10th, they missed the whole damn boat, because the point of the talented 10th was to help out the other 90%. But we have become some selfish SOBs?
Now, I think some of us misunderstand. So folk got degrees, which I'm 100% for education. I have two wonderful daughters, as you know, both have advanced degrees. All is well. We want people to do well and to be well. But as we mentioned, the old crew, who also, Joe Howard and many others, got an education. Dr. Z is a great example of the old school, Zollicoffer. His daddy, I knew better than him, because I'm a boomer, but they never left us. Dr. Z today and Dr. Z's father never left us. Dr. Z, the daddy, had offices in the hood and was there 20, and you could call Dr. Z. He was a pediatrician.
He was my pediatrician.
Huh?
He was my pediatrician, Garwin Medical Center.
Right. But
Black
you could
home.
just,
Black
and
home.
you just call, right. Shirley Chisholm, and I'll think of the other doctor's name, but Shirley Chisholm was one of the two partners in Garwin Medical Center.
Shirley Chisholm. I thought she was. I thought she was a politician.
Shirley was a male. Shirley was a male, and John. I can see his name, but the other Dr. John Chazelle, Dr. John Chazelle, and Shirley Chisholm.
He was on WEAA at some point, right?
Right, absolutely. He was a great physician also. But these gentlemen, you could pick up the phone and call them on home. They didn't have cell phones. The technology wasn't there. But it wasn't just that you had to go to the doctor's office at Garwin and make an appointment. You could call them at home, and your mom could call them and said, like, Carl has a cold or a fever, what should I do? And he wouldn't say, well, call my office, make an appointment, I'll probably be free next Wednesday. He would handle that for you right there on the phone personally, because you call them at home, and somebody at home picked up the phone and said, hold on, I'll get them for you. And so we're talking about the same.
We had better relationships.
We're talking about the same type of relationships, whether it's an elected official or a medical doctor or a school teacher. Folk, first of all, Donnie, we all lived in the same communities. You must remember, whether it's Sandtown or East Baltimore, that the people who represented you lived among you.
Troy
right?
Bell lived right around the corner from us on Baker.
Everybody lived in the community. And they were regular folk who you saw in the grocery store, or as you said, you saw in the bar. They were regular folk who sat there with you. They ate their meals where you ate your meals. They went to the same church.
What happened to us? Now
We moved up.
These cats on television, or you see them on Instagram.
We moved up, as my friend Edwin Johnson would say, and I don't agree 100% with Edwin, but Edwin said that immigration killed the African American community. That once we were able to go to somebody else's bar, somebody else's restaurant, somebody else's church.
Did you know that Hip Hop Fried Chicken is owned by Pakistanis? They done stole our culture, and black people buying that sugar and salt fried chicken like it's going out of style.
Yeah, I was standing next to someone at an event, an auction, actually, and he introduced himself to me, and he said, "Aren't you the councilman?" I said, "Yes, sir. How are you?" He said, he named himself. He said, "I'm the owner of Hip Hop Chicken." I said, "What?" Yeah, I was like amazed. Not that he couldn't be, but in my mind, I was looking for another culture than the gentleman who introduced himself to me. Very nice guy.
Whatever. How do we get back to who we are. I see the Latinos come in. I saw this video once. It was about 40 Latinos. They went in like 6 p.m. The next morning, this house was completely done. We used to do that. We used to build white houses, skyscrapers, businesses, grew fruits and vegetables. And shout out to the people over there on Monroe Street. They got farmland and planting and everything.
Beautiful.
How do we get back to basics? I mean, the church, damn, you used to go to the church in the community. They still got Israel Baptist Church over there. But now the church, damn, you need a car to get to the church. You used to go walk to the church. Now the church is way, you got to get a damn airline ticket to get to the church.
People moved up and out, Donnie.
Well, you need a helicopter because
out.
Preacher got too many churches.
People moved up and they moved out. There was a point in after Martin Luther King in the 70s where we did say, I'm black and I'm proud. And we stopped hurting one another for a minute. We didn't have to put X's on our stores. We knew who we were and we supported each other. We were only there for a minute. I don't understand that, Donnie. For a minute, we loved black people. For a minute, we loved each other. For a minute. And then we said we can go to their food store. And so we did.
That was one of the things. That was one of the things. But let's not forget the war and the attacks and the assaults on the black community. You saw The Godfather. They say give the heroin to the N-word.
Right.
And then came the cocaine because
you're right.
And then after the cocaine came the crack cocaine.
Right.
And all along were the liquor stores.
Right. And Tyrone Powers, a former FBI, can tell you about the intentional dumping of crack cocaine into the African American community. This is not just a conspiracy somebody made up. This is real. The federal government dumped crack cocaine into the black community to fund
Iran-Contra crack.
Iran-Contra, right. And they had what was that called? COINTELPRO, counterintelligence program. Right. So they were sending agents into our community.
Black agents.
I was going to say that.
Some of them are famous and on TV today with their tight ass.
I was going to. Well, and they used other people, and I'm going to say it, like Al Sharpton, the spy, who
look like Eddie Long with them tight t-shirts on.
But they sent our preachers into our community to report on us. It's amazing. And I could do a whole nother show on why would we be putting these people up on pedestals today, given their history and the fact that they cause as much as anybody, and I'm not taking a gun out of the white guy's hand, but these turncoats, and I got a stronger word than that, are as responsible for the death of Martin Luther King and Malcolm X as any white person. You hear what I'm saying? Malcolm X couldn't have died except for black people telling the police when and where, and then pulling back, and then opening the door and letting the white guys walk in. That's another show, but you know exactly. And Some of the Truth is interesting. I don't know if you guys have been watching Godfather of Harlem with Forrest Whitaker. And that show, I don't know who's writing or producing, but that show is as close to the truth as any nonfiction show can be. And they told the truth about the death of Malcolm X and who pulled back and who let the doors open, et cetera, et cetera. And the fact that the FBI, CIA, and the New York City Police Department were all a part of the same conspiracy to kill Malcolm X, along with, of course, some of the brothers across the river in New Jersey. And we got all of that. We have all of that. But
Okay.
what we've lost, Donnie, is what Malcolm had, what Marion had, what Adam had,
Carl
what
Stokes.
Du had.
Carl Stokes of Cleveland, your namesake.
Yes,
Harold
absolutely.
Washington, Chicago.
Harold Washington, right? Absolutely. Young, Coleman Young in Detroit.
Who's the man?
So,
who's that guy in Newark, New Jersey?
say
Was that a Baraka?
again?
Was it Baraka in New Jersey in Newark?
I know where you're going. I can't.
Okay, the
I
name
can't.
is but Newark, New Jersey, they had
I know where you're.
representation. So since we on the politics, now I'm gonna take you where you thought I was gonna take you early on. But we had to get this history because if we don't know our history, we're bound to repeat it. All right,
Right.
there's an election coming up May 14th. What are we looking like?
Well,
Are
probably.
Are you running for
No.
mayor? Damn, I ain't even get it out yet. Damn.
Look,
Damn.
damn.
Well, damn.
I'll be there. I'll be there. I'll be there. I think what we need is, I saw yesterday on Facebook, I look at that once a month, the 8 or 9 or 10 guys who were part of the Goon Squad. Doni, we need you. I wish we still had that one, but we need you and others who are unapologetically Black saying stuff that means so much for us. Almost nobody among Black leadership says anything that is 100% Black anymore. We want to be fair, and we can only be fair by taking care of Black folk. That's the only fair place we are right now. If we try to give everybody a quote unquote equal share, equal is not fair. Equal is not fair. It's like the affirmative action. How could we, Black people are saying, we ought to be fair. Fair? So for 400 years, the only people who got schooled, the only people who got a job was a white male, not even a white female, unless she was fronting, right? So white females front for white males, but it's still the white male who's dominating. And so when there was 400 years of affirmative action and nobody complained, now folks want to complain.
And this is where my problem with the squeegee kids come up. They talk about the squeegee kids, but they don't talk about these poor whites standing on Black corners, panhandling in the Black community after you had a 400-year head start. Did I miss something? You stepped on my ancestors' neck. You hit them with whips. You put chains on them, and you still at a disadvantage 400 years later. Homestead Acts. Hold back. What do they call them? The Sooners. Right. They jumped the line. You had all of these advantages, but in 2023, in the era of Donald John Trump and J6, you are standing on my corner, coming up to my car, saying, almost give me some damn money.
Well, they are saying that, and no one, very few people are making an issue of this. Obviously.
How dare you ask me for anything?
Right. 2 or 3 years ago.
Called me N-word in my alley. She eating off the ground.
Really?
Off the ground on a Sunday morning. Lady, what are you doing? What are you doing? Excuse me, do you own this alley? I said, well, by golly, I do.
Right.
Now get this. You do. She called me the N-word. The mentality of someone to stoop that low. I've seen poor Black people all my life. Since this Freddie Gray and the consent decree, I've never seen people this poor and dirty in my life.
Right.
Barefoot,
and they have
barefoot, walking on needles. I've never seen it in my life. I've seen poor black people all my life. I've never seen anything like what I'm seeing today. Never.
It's amazing.
And it's in front of children, shooting dope in public, shooting dope in front of kids on the school playground. But they talk about the squeegee kids.
It's amazing. No, it's amazing. And, you know, one of your colleagues, a white female who recently retired from her news station, told me 3 years ago, Carl, do you know about the white people who are squatting in Sandtown, Winchester? I said, what? What? And then you told me right after that. And it's a known fact that people can drive into Baltimore or walk into Baltimore and take up residency in vacant hot property in poor communities. Squat, right? And you know, squatters have rights. You can't just walk into a squatter and say, get out.
No,
once they're established residency.
This is where you send in your pit bulls and your Rottweilers. Because we ain't have all of that around here. We ain't have none of that.
Right. But we got
our own sheriff. You ain't doing it on this block.
Right.
Because we had too many fires. We've had 15 fires on this block, 3 next door.
Wow. Wow. And folks believe they live there and believe they own.
No, you don't. You're leaving right now.
Good for you. Good for you. Good for you.
No, you're not.
Right. And it's not spoken about. It's not brought up. The squeegee kids are the most dangerous people in America. They are the most dangerous people in America.
$1. I've seen black people stop and give white people dollars.
Right.
Won't give a squeegee kid a buck. Man, come on, get a kid a buck, man. Yes, he could be selling dope. Or he could come up to your car with that 9.
Right. And they want to know why a squeegee kid has a gun. Well, because, that's another show too. Of course, these kids are afraid.
To J. Wendell Gordon and to Warren Brown for at least saving a portion of that young man's life.
Absolutely.
I wasn't there. I know somebody come wheeling a bat at me. It's on and popping.
Well,
stay in your vehicle. Don't be a hero.
Right. Who's the one with the undeveloped mind in this case? Is it the 48-year-old man getting out of his car with a deadly weapon, coming across 10 lanes of traffic to accost a group of 14 and 15-year-olds? Who's the one with the undeveloped mind? Who is it? Is it the young man who realizes someone is coming to attack him and his friends, who gets a weapon in self-defense? Now, I know some people are thinking they know where I am. They don't know where I am. I'm asking a question that didn't seem to be answered yet. That hasn't seemed to be answered yet.
What would you do if somebody's coming at you with a bat? Because I know plenty of white people who got guns, AKs, and they'd have shot his ass.
Right. Many of
skin color, or take me back to Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman.
Right.
See, it's like
absolutely.
It's like there's selective amnesia, but we so used to it because we know America.
We do know America.
When it's you, there's one set of rules, but when it's me, well, you didn't know about this over here.
Well, unfortunately, we also know certain parts of Black America. Again, I'm going back to the fact that where were Black elected officials? Where are Black elected officials? Not all, but there is no collective cry out against what is going on in our city and beyond our city. People aren't speaking for Black people. They're not speaking for Black people. I'm going to keep using your term, unapologetically Black. People don't say, this is what Black people deserve, and this is what I will do for Black people. This is what I will do for Black people. Where is Marion Barry in Baltimore? Where is Adam Clayton Powell in Baltimore? Why are people afraid to say, This is what I will do for Black people. People in Baltimore can get elected just by doing what's proper for Black people. They don't have to be fair. Or if they are fair, fair means taking care of those who are unjustly put aside, put down. We have got this nomenclature of we got to be fair to everybody. We don't have to be fair to everybody. There's a lot of bodies who are already taking care of themselves, and they're not Black. Take care of the people most in need. Take care of those poor children. We have a school system that does not work for 90% of our poor Black children, Doni. 90%. Nobody's helping or saying enough about making sure they get an education.
Thank you for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me on. What we need, Doni, is outrage. Even I hold myself back sometimes, but we're not outraged enough, Doni. We're not outraged about the conditions in which we still live. It's unfair that we're in a city right now where they're building skyscrapers on the water. And we can see these skyscrapers from Sandtown or East Baltimore or Poppleton. We can see these skyscrapers, and it's like they're in another city. It's like there's a wall called Martin Luther King Boulevard. And if we could only get across that wall to the other side, there would be milk and honey. But we can't get across there. And the fact is that our elected officials are giving the people on the other side of the wall the money to build their skyscrapers. And all we get are people squatting in our community. That's all we get. Hell, we can't even get a truck with a basketball court like we got 40 years ago. We can't even get that. What we get are pools that are closed. Pools that are closed. And every summer, we get someone saying, we're closing the pool this summer to fix them. Instead of saying, while the pools are closed during the winter, we're going to fix them. Hello. Thanks for having me on, Doni. I'm sorry I've gone over a minute or 3 or 4 or 5. But you got to stay unapologetically Black, brother. I don't have to tell you that. And thank you for your Black Wall Street, Joe Mann's awards that you do regularly in Baltimore and the other cities that you do there, man. Thank you, brother. We appreciate you.
Thank you for selling me my first leather jacket. They couldn't put a match to that. It wasn't going nowhere.
You're mispronouncing it. It wasn't leather. It was leather. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you here.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good morning.
Bye-bye. Have a good morning.